My name is Rich Schmidt. We're here with Phaedra Brucato. It's January 15th, 2026. We're at a makerspace in Portland. And Phaedra, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Phaedra has a special treat for us today. In addition to being a winemaker, she's also a DJ. So we're going to get some music to go along with our interview today. So she'll be spinning some tunes for us while we're doing this. So it'll be a unique challenge for all of us. We're excited for this. Phaedra, first question to get you started while you're playing music. Why wine?
Why wine? Yeah. Why wine? Initially, I got a job working at a really incredible fine dining restaurant in Boston straight out of college and knew nothing about wine. And I realized that the more you knew about wine, the more money you could make, to be completely honest. So, I mean, I came from a background just like out of college. I wanted to continue learning. So it became obvious to me that like this was a amazing way for me to, make more money in the industry that I had kind of fallen into after college. But as I began kind of diving into the world of wine, I quickly became enamored with it, and just like it became a really amazing avenue for creativity and learning that I think tied a lot of different disciplines together. So kind of just stayed on track with like who I was as a person and what, I don't know, what type of things I was passionate about. I could tie it to like any interest that I had, really. Mm-hmm. So. Mm-hmm.
So we'll talk about a life before wine a little bit. Tell us about where you're born and raised and path into college.
Yeah, I'm originally from Seattle. I was born in Seattle. Born on a futon. My name's Phaedra. Good thing I wasn't a boy because my parents didn't have a name picked out. So definitely an accident. But my parents separated when I was pretty young, when I was 2. So kind of moved around a lot with my mom, and then my dad owned the house that I was born in, and lived next to my grandparents, who are kind of my second parents. They're brilliant, really like wonderful people. And then when I was 10, my mom decided to move down to Southern Oregon, to Williams, Oregon, so about 30 miles outside of Medford, to be with her boyfriend, now my stepdad. Mm-hmm. Moved into a yurt. So him and his buds bought BLM land and built on it illegally. Moved into a tiny 900 square foot yurt, no bathroom, right? It's kind of used the neighbor's outhouse. I remember like digging scorpions out of like, nurse logs out in the woods. But quickly my mother decided that wasn't, viable with a 10-year-old daughter. So we moved into a house in Williams and then eventually moved into Medford when I totaled my first car a month after I got it, driving home at night. Because I was going to school in Medford, so. But I did split custody, so I spent summers and holidays in Seattle with my dad. So, you could look at it many ways, best of both worlds, but also there's definitely a fragmented quality to my upbringing, which I think has caused me in my life to be very adaptable, but also, wanting and needing to like experience and understand everything. So.
Tell me about choosing college.
I got into a lot of trouble as a teenager. I went to public school until I was 13, and then my 13th birthday, I had a big party at my house and someone brought pot, and my mom figured it out, and she went into the room when all the girls were sleeping and like found a pipe and called everyone that was at the party's parents, and I went into school the next day and had no friends. 0. But the following year, so that was like, halfway through the school year. The following year, she sent me to a Catholic school in Medford, but a very liberal Catholic school, like definitely completely different energy. And I went from kind of being a little troublemaker and getting mediocre grades to getting really good grades. Although I still got into trouble. But that really that changed my trajectory, albeit, it's like at the time I felt like I could never forgive her for that action. And it set me up to, get out of the middle of nowhere. And I really loved art and just creating things, but I also wanted academics to be like a big part of my life. So I was looking for something that could give me both of those, and I ended up at Tufts University in, ironically, Medford, Massachusetts. But they had a combined degree program with School of Museum of Fine Arts in Boston. So I went to school for 5 years, and I got a BA from Tufts and a BFA from School of the Museum of Fine Arts. So I was able to do both, which was like really incredible. So I had an amazing college experience. I think, might never pay off my debt, but I learned a lot. I met amazing people. At Tufts, I minored in Chinese, so I studied abroad in China. And then my major was international languages and visual studies, which was essentially just a cross-comparative major where I was able to focus on like art and art history, but also it was kind of a avenue to taking whatever classes I wanted to. Like a whole semester long class on Ulysses by James Joyce, be a great example. Yeah, or Zen and tea aesthetics, which I think is kind of a tangent, but thinking about wine and why it kind of resonated with me. When I was younger, my dad would take me to Chinese like little tea houses and we would drink tea, and I think that was kind of my entry point into beverage and just the creativity and just the poetry around what beverage is. And that's, I think, what caused me to focus on Chinese as a language as well. So I was just really blown away by it.
So while you were in school or maybe coming out of school, what did you think you would do with your life?
I wanted to make art, and I still do, But yeah, I think my plan was to move to New York and try and like become a working successful artist. I focused in painting at School of the Museum of Fine Arts. You didn't have to have like a declared focus there. It was like a very loose school. You didn't get grades. So it was kind of like you got out of it what you put in. But I loved painting, and I think I really had a moment of realization when I took an abstract painting course, and that kind of like opened my eyes to what painting could be and how you could think about it in many different ways. Like, really interesting. We talked about the idea of like self-reflexive paintings. So essentially a painting that is aware that it's a painting. But I think with painting, and I think that ties into winemaking too, and just like most art forms that I've been inspired by, I would allow paintings to reveal themselves to me in a way. And I've worked with ceramics and done pottery as well. It's been a big part of my life more recently. But I think clay feels very similar to that. And of course, winemaking, you know, it's like, it's not, you have to like let go of control at times. And that, I think, that's like when the true beauty happens. So it's like, that's where the magic lies for me personally.
So you mentioned you found yourself working in a fine dining in Boston and discovering wine. Tell me a little bit about the experience, not just the wine part of it, but the work, the place, and what was the experience like for you, and how did your kind of time there evolve?
Yeah, so right out of college, I really needed a job, and I applied to everything I could find on Craigslist that was like service industry. And the first place to get back to me was this restaurant, L'Espalier, which I saw the email from them and I'm like, what is it? Like, I don't even know what this word is or how to pronounce it. And then I find them on Yelp or something, and I'm like, oh my God, like $4 signs. Like crazy, like incredible restaurant, right? Like I think that if Boston had been Michelin rated, which it has never been, but they probably would have been 2 Michelin stars when I worked there. But yeah, they had me come in for an interview. I recall going up, because it was on the 2nd floor. You took an elevator up. It was attached to the Mandarin Oriental. And I remember sitting, waiting for to go to my interview, but they were interviewing someone prior to me. And I hear the manager ask the kid being interviewed if he could tell him the difference between Burgundy and Bordeaux. And I'm sitting there in this chair, like I have the 1st generation iPhone, and I'm just like frantic, you know, like, okay, Burgundy, Bordeaux, like I have no idea. Red wine, both red wine. But yeah, I mean, I went into that, they hired me. I guess they saw something in me. Went into that job with 0 wine knowledge whatsoever. Really like no experience in that world at all. I worked at restaurants, but nothing even remotely close to that. And it was an amazing experience. I mean, crazy chef, right? Like really intense. I almost lost my job in the first month because I was caught by the chef leaning against the wall instead of just standing up straight. But you know, we had an amazing team. It's a family. It's people that I am still close with, and this was 15 years ago. 15. And you know, a wine team. We studied together. I think it was a little bit different than the current state of things too, where it's like you're paid a server's wage, so you know, $2 and something cents an hour plus tips. But it gave the space for education within the restaurant. So we would have wine training every Friday. I feel like I had my first aha moments with wine working there, where I truly, you know, became blown away when we would talk about a wine, and I could understand, right? Like something as simple as like peach in Viognier, right? Like moments like that aren't the most complex now to think back to it. Or I remember like Abbazia di Novicella Kerner, just being like blown away by that, which was so cute. Or the first orange wine I ever tasted, which was Movia, and being introduced to that, which, you know, for 2011, it's like definitely saying something. And we were like, we had tons of DRC on the list, you know? So it's like really incredible too that we were introduced to wines that were a bit out of like what one would expect to have at a fine dining restaurant like that. So it was a great experience. And I don't think I like really realized how special it was until I left. So I was there for 2 years, and then I moved back to the West Coast and worked in a couple restaurants there. Actually worked at Poppy with Madeline Puckett of Wine Folly before she had like really started that project. It was kind of just in its infancy. Yeah. And I remember my mom sending me or showing me this article, like tiny little blurb in Sunset magazine about the Willows Inn on Lummi Island and how like special it was. And I'm like, oh, I should apply there. Seems so dreamy and magical. And I am someone who, it's like, if there's something that I've never done before, I will convince myself that that's the right move for me. Yeah, so I applied there because I guess they were hiring a server, and I ended up getting a job at the Willows Inn on Lummi Island as a server in 2014, and I moved to Lummi Island. So tiny island, 800 people, no cops on the island, like really just a wild experience. And I started as a server. The person doing the wine program though was like a bit checked out, you know? And I just kind of elbowed my way into it, you know? I just like I took on more responsibility and offered to do more than was required of me, I guess. And the following year, I took over the wine program. So I was there for 3 years total, but the following year I took over the wine program. The list made no sense at all.
How'd you fix it?
I made them focus on Pacific Northwest wine. I was like, we are a local, you know, everything that we source is local. But we should like focus on, we don't have the same budget as 11 Madison Park, right? We don't have that sort of budget. Let's just like pay attention to what's close to us. And I totally revamped and changed the list to focus on Pacific Northwest wine. I realized that, you know, those in many situations weren't the most compelling wines for especially like wine people, but I think it really worked. And to have a focus, it allowed us to just like be a bit more cohesive and like just the challenge too of food and wine pairing was like really amazing because there's so many bad wines from these areas. God, I tasted so much bad Pinot Noir. Oh my gosh, and like Syrah from Walla Walla, where it's just like feels like there's like heavy cream in your mouth. But I think the challenge was overall good. And it also gave me the opportunity to like do a deep dive into wine in the Pacific Northwest. And I was able to visit vineyards from all over like Washington and Oregon and really like dig into this area, which I think when I was at L'Espalier, we tasted, I remember Ken Wright. I remember tasting Ken Wright Pinot as like the first Willamette Valley Pinot Noir that I had ever tried. So it's like, felt really exciting to dive in. And I was introduced to a lot of experimental winemakers too. And I mean, 2015, 2016, so it was like very much a new thing, but Chad Stock and his Minimus project was like incredibly compelling. And I don't think Hi-Mi-Tsu wasn't even really out and about yet. I think 16 was like kind of the first real vintage, right?
There, yeah.
But it gave me an opportunity as well I convinced them to let me go work harvest for a couple weeks. Actually, in 2015, they let me work harvest for 2 weeks, but they made me drive back up for the weekend, which is insane. And then I drove back down. So I worked at Teutonic with Barnaby and Olga in 2015, and I feel like just working harvest like really expanded my understanding of the whole process, and I really, checked me when it came to like what sorts of questions I was asking reps, right? It's like, why am I asking what percentage new oak? It's just like such a silly question. We just like don't know. Until you're in it and making it and have like just a better grip on that. And then in 2016, my last year, I was the wine director, but I also took over the bar program. I'd split that role with another manager there, and also, had a big role in like service direction. But it was a difficult restaurant to work at for many reasons. You can just search the New York Times articles by Julia Moskin to do a deeper dive on that. But I at the end of 2016, it was time for me to leave. So then I moved to Portland. I don't know. I'm lost.
You're doing great. You're doing great. Tell me about what wines you found compelling as you were learning about wine, both on the East Coast and then in the Northwest. What wines were you drawn to, and what wines did you like insist had to be part of your program?
Well, I think I think for the Willow's Inn, we like very much were a seafood and vegetable focused restaurant. So, white wines were the ultimate when it came to pairing, but then finding a balance too. It's like, how can you integrate red wines into a wine pairing and find ones that are balanced, low enough in alcohol that they won't overpower things. But I think that, someone like Chad Stock, who's working with alternative varietals and was experimenting, like wines like that were some of my favorites. And all through my life, I've always like wanted to try new things, experience new things. It's like I'm not the person who could order the same wine every time. I can't, even music that I adore and love, if I listen to it too much, I just get so burnt out. Can't do it. So finding producers that were experimenting, I think, was the most important and exciting thing for me in building a program. And, you know, having the opportunity as well to introduce guests to those wines that they wouldn't have normally been privy to or known about.
So why Portland as a next step?
Portland as a next step because Owen Kotler offered me a job doing sales. And I think at that point I kind of had become really intent on natural wine. You know, like wanting to do a deeper dive into that. So I worked for him in Portland, and I soon realized that it would not be financially viable for me to just sell wine in Portland for Owen Kotler as a 1099 employee. So back into restaurants I went, yeah. But again, like had some amazing experiences. I worked at DOC in Portland for a while. I took over after Austin, who built an amazing program there, and it was really like creative and loose and allowed me to taste with all of these different distributors and importers and really do a deeper dive into Italy and natural wine from Italy. And then Owen as well. I was still working for Owen, and Owen took us to Italy as well to do a wine trip, which was unbelievable. It was so intense. It's like, I think we were there for 9 days, and we flew into Milan, and then we went up to Le Piani and Bocca, and then down to Torino for a wine fair, and then all the way over to Friuli, and then we went to Bardolino, and then down, oh my gosh, Bardolino, Tuscany, Chianti, and then San Gimignano to visit Montanidoli. Most amazing place I've ever visited, I think. Unbelievable. And then over to the Marche, and then up to Parma, and visited some Lambrusco producers, went to a wine fair there, Vignaioli di Vini. It was like 9 days. It was wild, but unbelievable, right? I do recall like driving through Tuscany, and we're like we're on the freeway and we're driving, and Owen is like, oh, there's the exit to Florence. Beautiful city. Just keep driving. And I studied art, you know, like I studied art and art history, so it felt like heartbreaking at times to not be able to really have any time to engage with something else that was really important to me, but there's time, yeah. But yeah, worked in sales for a while, realized that it was really hard to make a living doing sales in Portland, and really wanted to work harvest again. And in 2020, the pandemic hit, and I got laid off of jobs, but I was able to get a job working with Chad at David Hill in 2020. And I worked with him, in 2016 for 2 weeks. Same deal, yeah. While I was at the Willows. So I had a connection there too, outside of just buying a boatload of his wine for the Willows, which is always a great connection to have. but worked with him in 2020. And I think that was like my first time really like understanding just the grit that it took. And, you know, failing at times, doing my best. But it was a great experience. The pandemic was a weird time. I actually ended up moving to Kansas at the end of harvest. Found a job working for a distribution company out there that sold natural wine. And it's actually, I think, the most money I've ever made, but is probably the most unhappy I've ever been as well. But it gave me this like amazing skill set, I think, that I'm so thankful for. And I also I'm from the West Coast. I lived on the East Coast for a long time. My parents are from the East Coast, but I'd never spent time in the heart of America, the heart. And it taught me a lot about the world. And I think like, you know, opened my eyes to a lot of different, like, you know, people are very different if they're like outside of the coastal elite, but are also like special in their own right. And I also feel like I could sell anything, you know? I was like selling 10 stacks of organic Pinot Grigio that retails for $9.99 to liquor stores. So.
You mentioned, before you got to Kansas, you mentioned obviously working with Chad. Yeah. Tell me about that harvest experience and about, were you thinking of being a winemaker? Were you thinking of making your own wine?
Oh yeah, 2020 I made my own wine.
You made your own wine?
Okay. With Elle.
Okay.
So I met Elle, my friend Elle, who is also a winemaker. And it was like a friendship at first sight, you know? And so refreshing during the pandemic to have someone that you could bullshit with, you know? Because I feel like Portland was so hypersensitive. It's like even my closest friends, it's like wouldn't come inside my house, right? So we built a bond for sure, and I was like, we should make a wine. And we're both like, should we do it? We should do it. So we asked, and Chad let us make a wine together. Obviously 2020, crazy forest fires. And even though we sourced grapes from Hillside in the Dalles, which didn't get hit nearly as hard as a lot of the valley, there was definitely smoke taint, but an amazing learning experience. We went through the whole process together. We started a business, an LLC together, in the hopes of like continuing a wine project. But with me moving to the Midwest, it didn't end up being viable. So we had a very amicable breakup, but amazing experience to do that. And again, I just feel like working in 2020 like gave me it's just like, I just like wanted it. I wanted to work production, you know, because I think it was like a culmination of just needing to create or make things, which is like very important to me just in my life. I know that that's what I need to be happy. Mm-hmm. But I could like tie all of my past experience, tie that into winemaking. And then I moved back to Seattle in 22. Didn't last long. About 2 years, and there was time. And moved back to Seattle and had a friend who needed a house sitter down in Portland. So I house sat for them, and I saw that Julia at Loop de Loop needed help because their one of their like main harvest assistant injured themselves. So I reached out. I'd met Julia like maybe once, and I reached out and ended up kind of just like becoming their full-time pretty much full-time person from mid-October till the end of harvest. I think it was like 5 or 6 weeks. So not that long, but it was intense and it was really rewarding. And I feel like it was an unbelievable experience because of how much I was able to do. And, you know, they trusted me and treated me as family. And I also just loved the intensity and the long hours. You know, there's something broken, I think, in most of us that just like needs it. And then at the end of harvest, I ended up going, or I, you know, actually went to Seattle where I had moved and I got a job at a fine dining, or not a fine dining, at a restaurant group as the wine director there, 6 restaurants. And did that, but was, I think, really struggling with wanting to continue working production. Struggling with post-pandemic restaurant industry, green servers, like that did not care at all. I was trying to figure out any way to like get them to engage. You know, I'm like making tech sheets that are just brightly colored with lots of pictures and diagrams. I'm like, I don't know how to engage people. It was a struggle for me, and it was just a struggle in general with not feeling like I was being paid what I deserved and working so much and putting so much effort in. And I was able to get a job working harvest in 23 at Lotta, which is in Seattle. Andrew Lotta worked at Charles Smith for about a decade and was, you know, he's an amazing winemaker. The wines are stylistically probably like not the first place I would go, but in terms of just organization and structure, and also the wines were natural, technically, you know, low SO2, like very much not manipulated. But that was a really illuminating experience for me to just see a different way of winemaking, you know. I like to play ambient music to the grapes while they're fermenting.
Yeah, tell me about that. What do you think it does for them?
I think that it's like more than just what it does for the grapes themselves, but I think that it's like the energy in the space, you know? Because frequencies are frequencies, but I think that there's something to be said for creating an energy in this space that, especially during harvest when things can be so frantic, if you can find ways of mitigating that or calming it down a bit, then the entire process will be a little bit smoother, you know, more velvety. So, and I think that, you know, there's like this Mort Garson album, you've probably heard of it. Mort Garson, Music for Plants.
Sure.
It's like,
I've heard of Music for Plants.
Yeah, it's like all synthesizer music. It's like really powerful, but it's for plants, you know? And I think that there's something like, something to be said that we're creating sounds that we want to like resonate with other life around us. So I like to be really thoughtful about that. And you know, sometimes you play a little heavy metal. Just, if if you need to move fast.
If the fermentation.
Or like a nice, a little like crazy techno can be good at times. That's like a 2 a.m. moment. But I think that overall it is really nice to play music that feels very like natural and connected with nature. And there's so many like incredible ambient producers from, last 50 years or so that have made music that's their intention, is to replicate nature, enhance nature. So that's what I'm trying to play here.
I like it.
Yeah.
So before we move on to After Lotta, tell me a little bit about your DJ career.
DJ career.
Do you have a DJ name?
Pip!
Pip.
It's a grape seed. Isn't it cute?
Love that.
It's also, what is it? Performance improvement plan, if you're about to get fired, which I find like, someone pointed that out to me after the fact, but I feel like it aligns.
For sure. When did you start working behind the turntable?
I'm 37, so when I was 30 was the first set I played out. Yeah, but there's a stereotype about Portland that everyone is a DJ, and that's definitely been my experience. So it was kind of, music has always been extremely important to me. It's been really influential to me. I've never really studied it, but most of my friendships are born of like a passion for music. Like some of my closest friends in college, that's like why we became close, and they are, doing similar, or, in most cases are far more successful than me when it comes to music, which is truly admirable, but I think it speaks to just like how important it is. So even though I've never really gotten good at an instrument, when I moved to Portland and found that so many people that I was close with, this was like something that they were passionate about. It was just a matter of time before I was like, show me, teach me, please. But I think it ties into working in wine and being a sommelier. It's like a curation of an experience. I would never play music that I knew people would hate, and I would never want to serve wine that I thought someone would hate, even if I loved it. So I think that it just feels natural that I would fall into this, and just being like, having a very eclectic taste. Like every genre, I can pick out things that I adore. So DJing felt like that was just a natural place to go if I wanted to be engaged with music in a way that wasn't just like passive.
Give me a DJ highlight, an event, a time that you thought you knocked it out of the park.
Well, funny DJ highlight was this summer, which was when I played the Lingua Franca 10-year anniversary. And I opened for Neon Indian, who is huge. Like, that's a huge artist. And I got paid more than I think I'll ever get paid to DJ again in my life. So I think that was like my apotheosis when it came to like my DJ career. It was pretty incredible. They had a whole dance floor, crazy sound system. I think the maximum people that were on the dance floor was maybe like 5. It was a great experience, though. I had so much fun. It was one of those weird moments that felt very like it was high stakes and low stakes simultaneously. There's like a kind of a cognitive dissonance to it, but that was really fun for me in a strange way. But I think that probably my other DJ highlight that is recent was my friends got married in Poland at a castle in rural Poland. And I was able to DJ like the last set. And it was supposed to only be an hour, and I ended up playing for 4 hours because everyone was like, it was just really, really cute and sweet, and everyone was loving it. And at 7 a.m., they brought out this table and set it in front of the DJ table, DJ booth, whatever, a table, and it was full of pastries and fruit and Prosecco. And we all had this feast. The sun's coming through, just like the lights coming through. I'm drenched, I'm so sweaty. But it was like such a magical moment for me to be a part of an experience like that, and to have people be really, really grateful for like thanking me for such a magical moment. And then I had closed with Nirvana, Come As You Are, because there's a lot of people from Seattle who either lived in Germany now or came out. And then the next day someone played a piano like during breakfast time, and she covered Nirvana, Come As You Are, which I felt very honored by. So yeah.
Incredible. Pretty incredible. So 2023 Harvest in Seattle. Tell me what comes next after that.
2023 Harvest in Seattle with Lotta, much more like structured and strict. I really wanted to make wine. Andrew would not let me make wine. Julia said, you can make wine down here. And I'm like, are you sure? You know, like, what, do I have to pay? She's like, just do it. And I was able to like find some Viognier. I bought a ton of Viognier, and I was working 6 days a week harvest, and then on my day off, I would get off work on my 6th day and I would drive down to the gorge, so 4+ hours, and I would like make wine and then drive back and go to work at Lotta. I almost lost my job because I was like 2 hours late one time, and he was he let me stay. But that was one of the most intense experiences of my life, and I think I learned a big lesson, which was that I'm too old for that sort of thing. I mean, it was wild. I don't know how I survived. But the wine turned out really well, so I feel thankful for that, I think. Yeah. But yeah, I made wine at Loop the Loop. Like ended up bottling 35 cases, and then I bottled some Pet Nat as well. I bought these 2 terracotta amphora from this person that hand threw them in Elkton, Oregon. They're like, you might have seen them. They're small. They're like 15 gallons. So part of it was skin contacts, and I basket pressed and put it in amphora, and then direct press was the rest of it. But that was the first wine I ever made like 100% on my own. So felt really good to have done that. And then in 24, I worked harvest in South Africa. I really wanted to work in Australia. and I reached out to a friend who I knew had worked, she's a winemaker down in California. She makes Atela is the label. And I knew she worked in Australia, and I chatted with her on the phone about it. And she was like, look, I know you want to go to Australia, but Phaedra, South Africa. I had this unbelievable experience working for this producer in Swartland, Stompy, Johan Meyer. So he makes a Mother Rock is the label that you don't see them much around here. But I was able to go, he had someone drop out, kind of, because it was I was like kind of last minute that I figured like financially that I could make that call to go out there. And I went to South Africa and worked harvest in Swartland in the middle of nowhere, Picket Boberg. Like Swartland has like a big wine community, but we were like an hour and a half from pretty much anything. And that was so hard. Like I was certain that I was going to die in the first, I think, week and a half, you know. But you learn to I was in the best shape of my life. It's like almost had a six-pack. It's wild. But, you know, there's load shedding, so you just don't have power for hours at a time, and you just learn to work with less, do more with less. Just a beautiful country. We did not use any SO2. I feel like disease pressure is just so much lower there because it's so arid, and you know, it doesn't actually start raining until maybe the last like week or two of harvest is like when you see your first fruit fly, you know? But he had a property that he purchased 3 years prior and planted a bunch of different varietals, like not irrigated, little bush vines. We harvested some of like the first fruit on a lot of these vines, but you're like on this like crazy granite rocks, like real granite heavy area, and you're on your knees and you're crawling. Like it looked like I was abused, you know, even a few days in, just bruises everywhere. But amazing wines, and it was me and 2 other people as like the full-time interns. And one was, she was Afrikaans, so she had she's like familiar with everything. And then the other kid was a 20-year-old German boy who was from Franconia, Lucas. And he, you know, he was born at this winery. He like was born with grapes in his mouth, essentially. But I feel like him and I taught each other so much because he had never tasted, for example, he'd never tasted Chenin Blanc before coming to South Africa, you know? But the way that he was able to teach me how to like navigate the space of a winery and efficiency and like just methods of production that you don't think of necessarily, just how to navigate it gracefully and in a way that it's like you're saving energy. It was incredible. And that ended up being my like best friend, you know? Mm-hmm. We kicked it. I'm like, I never thought I would be 36 and my closest homie would be a 20-year-old German boy. But it was cute as hell, you know? And he was super cool. Like, to be that young and to be so passionate about natural wine. He had just come from working at Judith Beck in Austria, and then I think last harvest he worked at Preisinger. So just, even though his parents, their winery was very conventional, it's like he had this passion from such a young age, which was like really impressive to see, because I feel like us as Americans, we're just all over the place. Like, we don't grow up with a vision generally of what we need to do with our lives. Some of us, but most of us, not so much. Or it's like not even encouraged, right? It's like you're encouraged to not have it all figured out necessarily. So I had a lot of respect for him. And of course, I mean, the winemaker as well, Stompy. It's his nickname, which is like Afrikaans slang for a cigarette that you put out. It's kind of like squished. He's short. So, yeah. And then I traveled in South Africa alone for a while. One of the most brilliant, beautiful places. Country of extremes. I loved it. I would definitely go back. I would love to go back. I think there's so much more that could be learned, like being out there. And really incredible too for me, because I met so many people from Europe that were working harvest out there, right? It's like you don't meet those people if you're working harvest in the United States usually, because they're in Europe. So being in the Southern Hemisphere and meeting a lot of people too who actually like make wine in both hemispheres, and that's kind of like they'll do a small side project in South Africa, which too, I think it just is like, it's really, I think you grow so much having to navigate winemaking in two completely different climates, terroir, different people, different equipment, way less equipment. I don't know.
How did you end up here?
Right here?
Right here.
Well, after I got back from South Africa, I went and worked at Loop de Loop. I was like totally broke. I had no plans. I had like gotten out of a long-term relationship. I had basically left my long-term relationship. He had moved to New York and I'd gone to South Africa. So it was like very amicable, but I feel like I came back to the United States and I'm like, what now? But Loop de Loop offered me a job and I worked out there as an assistant winemaker for a while. But it was like, it was difficult. I was broke. I didn't have a community. I couldn't find a place to live. I was living with them for a long time, which, you know, you can only do that for so long. And then I went and worked, before harvest I left and I worked for someone in Cascade Locks doing a sparkling wine project, which I hadn't ever really done before and I wanted to like learn more about. But both of those jobs really, I mean, at my age, were not paying me enough to get by. And after I left Loop de Loop, I moved to this commune in Carson. It's kind of a commune. Carson, Washington. Yeah, it's like if you cross Bridge of the Gods, there's Stevenson, and then you keep going. And we're out there. It was an intentional living community or something. Again, I'm like, I've never done this before. This is like on paper, this would be amazing. And then you get there and you're like, I guess I don't align necessarily. But I worked harvest in Cascade Locks. We did 76.2 tons, just 2 of us. And we didn't have someone hauling fruit. So it was crazy. Should have died then too. But when that ended, I was like alone in Carson. Had nobody. I couldn't find work. And I was like, why am I wasting all of my time out here? What am I fighting for? I could move back to Portland where I have my community and I have art and music and like all the other things that I'm passionate about. And I could still make wine. And I could also make money. Yeah, so I moved. That's how I got out here, and I was connected through Luke and Graham, who are both friends. So they helped get me in here. And that was, oh my gosh, almost a year ago. But I made a lot of wine in 24. So you saw I have 10 barrels of wine I need to bottle. And then I injured myself this last year, and then I injured myself again, and then I injured myself again, which is crazy. So I didn't make wine this year because I had a torn rotator cuff and a broken ankle, and it was not in the cards for me. So I'm trying to figure out like exactly where I am with winemaking. I think I really want to continue doing it, but also feel like I'm not, I don't have a winery, I don't farm a vineyard. I love the process of it, and I think that, there's something really magical about it all. But I would never purchase land with the current state of, what's happening with the United States, what's happening with the climate, it just feels like way, way too risky to be something that I would consider. I really like the idea of continuing to make wine, but to make wine in different places or collaborating and also integrating different different art forms into it, finding ways of like creating accessibility for people who might not necessarily have access otherwise. It's like there are custom crush facilities, but I feel like they're financially, if you don't have a lot of money, it's just like not really viable. So I feel like moving forward, I'd really like to consider ways of maybe breaking down some of those barriers to entry. That's something that I was struck by in South Africa too. It's like, if you're coming from Europe or the United States, the only thing that really costs you money is a plane ticket to South Africa, and then you're smooth sailing, right? But if you're living in South Africa, like the cost of coming to the United States or Europe or even Australia, right? It's like, that's such a barrier for people who are existing in that economy, right? It's like so I think, trying to like just discover ways of maybe creating like a easier path to education, whether it's for people from countries who might not necessarily like have the same sort of freedoms that we do to go and work harvest wherever we want, or just people within our own country, it's like, the like BIPOC community, they're like, how many successful winemakers are there that fall into anything that isn't like a cis white male, right? I think that we don't even realize how difficult it is for a lot of people to break into it. And I think that that's bullshit. I threw an event here recently that was called Assembly Theory, and we donated all of the profits to a couple different charities in Oregon, Pueblo Unido and Ahivoy, but ones that, that help elevate the Latinx, Latina, like that community, help them like grow in the wine industry if they'd like to, elevate them, give them the tools that they need. Because it's frankly ridiculous that we have so many people who are adept and probably curious and want to learn, and we just don't give them the resources to. So I want to think more about equity, even though maybe this is a bad time for it.
Maybe it's the best time for it.
It's the best time for it, but it's the hardest time.
So tell me about Optimum Volume, about naming it, about branding it, about getting it started, about selling it, all of those things.
Okay. We have to find a song. This is my friend Iggy from Kansas City. Play this one. Optimum Volume was initially what Elle and I called our wine label when we started it, but it was like a name that resonated with me because I felt like there could be many ways to interpret it. It could reference winemaking, volume of a wine. It could reference like volume as in sound, right? If you play records on specific sound systems, there's like a lot of times an optimum volume that you have it. If it's set to that, it'll sound incredible on the system. But if you go too high, it will sound blown out and it won't resonate the same way. So, but also volume of a liquid. So I kept that name, especially too because I wanted my wine project. I don't need to make, the most profound wines in the world. I think it's like more important to me to make something that is delicious and enjoyable and can surprise and delight a wide spectrum of different types of human beings. And that, I wanted my brand, my label, my LLC to kind of encompass a lot of different passions that I have, whether that be art and design or music or winemaking, or it's just like let it exist in many different spheres, right? So that was kind of the impetus for choosing a name that maybe feels a little bit more abstract and kind of long. I have a logo. I made a logo and it's people can't read it, so that kind of is fun for me. But I want to challenge people, I want to challenge people and kind of poke and prod, so I think that's part of just my personality as a human being, and I also feel like it's important to do that, especially when, you know, we're either like living in a vacuum, we're only just like, it's just a mimetic vacuum and you're hearing the same thing over and over, or you're doing the opposite and being very reactionary. So I think it's nice to give people the chance to think differently about something, challenging them to do that without making them angry per se. Which is why my logo is unreadable. But yeah, optimum volume. So my motto is, don't ask, just swallow. And I think that I've really just done everything myself. I like joke that last year was my year of like working harder, not smarter, which is very real. You know, I like have hand bottled everything. I hauled my wine in a U-Haul. I loaded it all up with a forklift in the middle of the night, while it was raining, into this U-Haul and drove it from Cascade Locks out here. Well, first Cascade Locks to Carson down the dirt road to my house so I could sleep. And then all the way out. So it's like, I designed all of my own labels. I hand printed them. I hand cut them. I hand labeled everything. It was a terrible idea. At first it felt kind of powerful. Like I felt a deep connection to what I was doing. But after you do that for 35 cases of wine, you realize that it's not sustainable. So, yeah, my label, I've been so DIY and just so grassroots, which I'm proud of. But moving forward, I think I will create better systems for myself. And then in terms of just selling wine, like I said, I mean, I really only have released my own wine in 2023. I had Pet Nat, some Pet Nat, plus 35, like probably 7 cases of Pet Nat from 23, 35 cases of still white. And then from 2024, I bottled a bunch of Pet Nat. Always make more Pet Nat. Man, I like hated it. And then something happened and it became amazing. But by then I had just like been topping with it because I thought it was bad. So, but yeah, most of my wine, I have kind of kept it under the radar because I feel like there is and this is gonna sound really stupid, but people not necessarily like knowing where to access my wine. It's like gives it this element of exclusivity. It's like cool. Mm-hmm. So I'll pour at events. Like there's a amazing magazine, like a publication shop in downtown called Chess Club. Mm-hmm. So it's like really beautiful design-focused magazines from all over the world. Mm-hmm. Just like any topic, but they're all beautiful. And I've poured my wine at events there. I've poured my wine at, there's a clothing brand here called Earth Studies. I'm wearing an Earth Studies jacket, I love them. But they have events and I poured wine at their events. There's another little shop / gallery called Land who did like a trip out to the Columbia River Gorge where we identified native flowers and plant species. And I poured my wine there. It was at Coyote Wall, so it was like really wonderful because my wine was from the area, and I was able to kind of connect that to the whole little like botanical hike experience. But I think it's, one really incredible thing about not having a lot of wine to sell is that I've been able to just not worry too much and allow myself to keep it kind of on the down low. And I think because of that, people are really excited about what I've made and are really excited about, what is to come. I've had it at a couple spots here, like a company, a wine bar here, as well as Daydream, have poured it, Nostrana. But I haven't, it's out. I don't have any more 23, so I have one case. Actually 13 bottles. But I love like being able to have complete artistic control over the wine that I make and the design, and I feel like it's really out there and weird and doesn't look like any other wine, and being able to tell my story and then also have just a wild aesthetic and being myself has been really special for me. Yeah, because I will do freelance design projects, and it can be really difficult sometimes when you're trying to like navigate another person's vision. So to be able to just let loose is like, it's the best therapy, But my 24s, I have some like weird stuff. I have Blaufränkisch, Zweigelt, Pinot Noir. And then I have a rosé-ish orange wine that I made. So that's Pinot Noir pressed over Grüne Veltliner and Sauvignon Blanc skins to add acidity. And then I macerated a tiny percentage of Gewürztraminer berries over the top. And God, it's crazy. It's like probably technically 3% Gewürztraminer, and it's so aromatic. I can't decide on the name for it. I either want to call it Mindfuck or Angel's Egg, because I made it in that giant, like, silly plastic egg that you might have seen in there. But I kind of like Mindfuck. What do you guys think?
Can't go wrong with that.
Oh my goodness. I feel like I was like listening to Ruben's interview, and I'm like, gosh, he's just such an intellectual. I wish I could do that, but now here we are talking about Mindfuck.
Intellect takes a lot of forms. Let's just say that. What comes next for Optimum Volume? What do you want to do with the brand? What do you want to do with the wine?
I'd like to bottle my 10 barrels and start selling them. I actually have a vision. Well, I don't know. Okay, no one will steal my idea, right? They might. I was chatting with Duality. I want to collaborate with everybody. I think that that's like, we need to decentralize things. We need to collaborate with people. I think that's the only way for like the small businesses and the small guys to succeed. But I was chatting with Mike at Duality Brewing, and I want to make like a little canned Lambrusco, and I could call it Lambruscato, like my last name almost. But I think that collaborating and doing something like fun like that could be really successful. Just not, I'm not capable of being serious, I think, but I don't want to take myself too seriously. I think my wine that I made, I am honestly, I feel like it's really good. I'm proud of it. But I still want to keep things like exciting and fresh and fun, and like I want to create things that could exist in all sorts of different situations and environments, and people would be down to clown, you know? So that's something I would like to pursue. And yeah, like I said, figuring out like better ways of collaboration and breaking down barriers to entry for other people. Like I don't want it to feel gatekept or, I mean, $2,400 a ton to make wine, custom crush at some places in Portland. That just doesn't feel right to me. I think that we could create better systems for people. So I'd like to try and figure out how I could engage in helping with that as well. And keep playing music.
All right. Well, I'm about to wrap this up. Is there anything we haven't played that needs to be played? Do you have a closing track?
Yeah. What do you want to hear? Nirvana? I might have it.
Don't play "Come as You Are." I don't want to deal with their lawyers. I'm not sure how big of a loss that is, but maybe a little. I was there when she was big. I don't know.
Well, I mean, my mom loves to give me shit and tell me about how she could have seen Nirvana, but she had to deal with me, so.
That's cool.
I know, poor thing.
All the questions that I have for you today, is there anything I didn't ask that I should have, anything we didn't talk about that you're hoping to talk about?
I don't know.
Tell us about your art. Tell us about your painting.
Oh, I haven't painted. Yeah, I would like to. I'd like to start painting again. I was doing a lot of ceramics. Yeah, I'd actually really like to make like you know how it's like Maria and Sepp Muster, they have those ceramic bottles. I want to like slip cast my own ceramic bottles for a limited run of wine. I think that, you know, it would be really important to me moving forward to find ways of creating like added value to the wine that I make, because I don't think that this industry is struggling in a big way, but people love visually stunning things. They love like aesthetically compelling things. They want to have the object. So, you know, I think collaboration, incredible and important, but also finding ways of like elevating the wine to be more than just wine, right? Like, imagine a handmade vase, but that's what the wine is in. So people will buy it no matter what, because they can show it off. And then just injecting humor into everything that I do. Yeah.
That's pretty fantastic.
Thanks for listening.
Thank you so much for taking the time and giving us a wholly unique interview experience today.
I know, I feel like I was so serious, though.
No, I don't think so. Soundtrack.
And rambling. Oh, boy.
We'll go ahead and let you off the hook. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, thank you.